And we're live. Hello, everybody. I am guessing that we're live now. Hi, everyone. Hello, Embrace community. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Rumbi. I am Embrace's operations manager, and I have the honor of hosting tonight's discussion around UIF. Today is the last day of World Breastfeeding Week 2023. And this year, the theme was enabling breastfeeding, making a difference for working parents. We know that for many parents who are lucky enough to be employed, the juggle of once the baby is here and figuring out feeding the new baby can be significantly difficult. It's quite a transition to go from being a working person to a working person who is responsible for a tiny life. And so what we wanted to focus on this week was to talk around one of the things that makes it easier for working mothers in particular to take the time that they need to establish a good breastfeeding relationship. And that is the Unemployment Insurance Fund. And I'm very lucky enough to have two powerhouses of women to help us discuss the Unemployment Insurance Fund, and also discuss the way in which it can facilitate breastfeeding relationships for working parents, and how this particular social protection that we have in South Africa can be a very important safety net that allows breastfeeding parents in particular to go back to work after giving birth, and allows workplaces to retain, to keep breastfeeding parents employed, so that, you know, to ensure that that gap that sometimes happens once a baby arrives doesn't happen, and it's easier for the breastfeeding parent to stay in the workplace and to remain as part of the workforce. So I want to introduce our panelists today. I'm going to start with Judith Kumbi, who I'm going to call Judy from here on out. Judy is the Chief Director of Business Operations at the Unemployment Insurance Fund. She's based in Pretoria, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Judy oversees the management and administrations of benefits payments, including declaration processes, monitoring of provincial office performance, call center services, which is very important. We'll talk about that, and registration of employers and compliance. Judy is the mother of two girls. Her firstborn is 20, and her youngest is 12, which we were talking about. That she was
Yes.
telling me, regrettably, Judy is 20 years in, and it doesn't get easier. So just letting everyone know.
Not at all.
It doesn't get easier 20 years in.
Not at all.
Thank you, Judy, for being with us.
Thank you
We
so
also
much.
yeah, we also have
And good
Anushka.
evening.
Yeah, Anushka Singh Bhima. Anushka is an attorney, a maternal rights advocate, and a 2023 Embrace Mamandla Fellow. We're very proud to have her. In 2015, Anushka launched ASK Legal and Consulting, later called ASB Legal Consulting. Her consultancy offers medico-legal training for healthcare professionals, and it also focuses on medical negligence, professional ethics and confidentiality, women's rights, and sexual harassment in the workplace. Anushka's firm has also contested constitutional matters and offered pro bono services, for which they received an award of recognition from probono.org. Most recently, Anushka entered the world of working parenthood. Welcome, Anushka. And her personal experiences, her personal experiences of the unique challenges of being a working parent, have sparked her interest in this particular subject, parents adjusting to going back to the workplace. So
Yeah.
welcome to the two of you. I'm very, very grateful that you're here, and that you're offering your time, both as I know that you're both working parents, and this is an overtime for you, but I also know that you both have experiences that are very particular to being working mothers, which is part of what we want to talk about
Yeah.
today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Judy, I want to start with you. I'm going to start with just a general question around the UIF. Can you tell us about the Unemployment Insurance Fund? What is it exactly? When was it started? And who administered it? So, can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rumbi. The Unemployment Insurance Fund, like the name says, it's an insurance that assists workers with short-term insurance. I think it started long time ago in 1966, but there was a new legislation that came in 2002. So basically, in terms of the UIF, we provide different benefits to the workers where we assist. So you basically like insure yourself so that in an event where you become unemployed or you lose your employment, then you can come and claim to UIF. And then in there as well, we also cover maternity, the one we'll be talking about. Also, but in instances where somebody goes on maternity leave and the employer is not paying them anything, as we know in different employers, some pay maternity benefits, some they don't. So in an instances where you go on maternity leave and your employer is not paying you a salary, or is not paying you your full salary, because in some instances they give you a top up of your salary, not the full salary. So that's when UIF came in then to assist with benefit. But we also have other benefit. The same worker, if you are ill for a period of more than 14 days and you cannot work and you cannot be paid any salary from your employer, then you qualify for illness benefit. But also, if the contributor passes away, the dependents can also come and claim benefit. So we've got the death benefit that if a person is married, the spouse can claim. In an instances there is no spouse, kids can also come in, or guardians can also come in and apply for benefit. So we also have the adoption benefit as well, for those that are adopting babies as well, that they can also come during that period when they are not receiving their salaries, can come and claim from UIF. So I think in a nutshell, that is the UIF and the different benefits that we pay.
And Judith, in terms of who is who is eligible for the UIF, what are, especially with regards to maternity leave,
Okay.
who can claim maternity UIF in particular? Who's eligible to claim? What are the criteria?
Okay. So any person in terms of the act, not only for maternity, for all our benefit, a person must work for more than 24 hours a month for you to qualify for a UI benefit. So the same as maternity, but in terms of maternity benefit as well, at least the person when you come and apply for maternity benefit, you're supposed to could have worked for at least more than 91 days. Uh, Preceding the period you come and apply for benefit within the year, at least you must have worked for 91 days. And we also cover for people that also suffer miscarriage in the last trimester. Maybe sometimes even if it's a stillborn baby, you still qualify to get a full maternity benefit with us. The only people that are not qualifying to claim maternity benefit are those ones that are receiving their full salary from your employment. So if you go on maternity leave for 4 months, your employer pays you the full 4 month salary or full salary that you normally get while you are at employment, then you don't qualify to apply for UIF benefit. But in an instances where you're not getting your salary, during that period, then you can come and apply. But also in an instances where you do get a salary, but you're not getting the equal salary that you've been getting, because in some instances you find that the employer will pay you 30% of your salary when you are on maternity leave. So in those instances, then those are people that can come and apply for maternity benefit.
And do I realize that you have to have been contributing to the UIF? Your employer also has to have been contributing. If they
Yes.
haven't been, what happens if I am pregnant? I'm kind of coming to the end of my pregnancy. I'm thinking about my leave. I put in for UIF. It turns out that my employer has not been. What happens then?
Okay. You see, actually, it's one of the biggest contributor when coming to delays of us processing. Not the only thing, but it's one of the biggest thing that normally causes the delay when when a person becomes, I have to go on maternity leave. If your employer has registered, so the first thing is the employer must register with UIF. The employer must exist in our database, because that's part of the process. Because remember, the employer register so that they can cover their employees. So you are not in a process to be covered where your employer is not in our books. So if the employer is registered with us, but the employer has not been providing information, let's say for an example for you, Ruby, you've been working in a particular company at Embrace, but they've not been giving us the information on monthly basis. So if you go on maternity leave, what then means is, instead of us processing your maternity benefit at the time, we need to start the process from the beginning, because we then need to go back to the employer. He has to give us all the information: when you started working, what was the salary that you were earning in different periods. We have to receive that information, capture it in the system, because remember, in terms of UIF, how much you get, we need that information. We need to know the period, how long have you worked. We need to know the salary so that we can know the amount we need to pay you. So now, at the time you submitted your application, but instead of us processing, we're doing something that we suppose your employer could have done 4 years ago. So now we're doing it at the time of application, and until that process is finalized, we are not in a process to proceed and process your application that you are submitting. However, in terms of the contribution, I think the fund have taken for a number of period now, have taken a position to say, when coming to the contribution, so the declaration has to come, because it's the base of what we use to pay benefits. But in
So
terms
the
of the
declaration is
contribution,
the UI.
your
It's
employee information. So, for
yes,
an
that's
example,
the
when did you
UI
start to
9 or
work?
UI 19.
Yes. The you are 19 years,
Right.
where the employer tells us your details, your ID, the salaries that you've been earning, the period you've been working on, and all of that. So that has to come. We can't do anything until that information is there, because that's the base of what we use for a claim. But in an instances that we've been receiving that information, for an example, because in terms of the act, the employer has to give us that information. We need to use that information to determine the contribution that you need to pay for UIF. But in an instances where the information is there, but the contribution was not paid by the employer, we do proceed and process an application and pay you, because we don't want to penalize the employee for the fault of the employer. We deal with the employer afterwards by taking them through our enforcement processes and all of that. But the maternity benefit is not impacted. We try by all means to make sure that we process an application and deal with the employer separately in terms of the recovery of the amount that they never contributed. The only time where we are not able to proceed, that's when your own information as an applicant is not in our system.
That is very good to hear. That the UIF is also following up on employers, and maybe that's sometimes the backlog. In
Yeah.
terms of the documents that are required for an application, we've had a question come in from Marlie Duploy, and I think this is some of what you've covered. Is there are documents that your employer has to have, and there are documents that you have to have. Can I just ask you, just if you can list off the top of your head? So the UI-19 is something your employer has to have, where they declare what you have been paid, what your salary has been whilst you've been in their employment.
Okay. If
Mm-hmm.
when you come, because let me explain it in this, because it's in different scenarios. You find in some
Sure.
instances other people the information it's there. So let's take with the from the applicant, né? Because we need to deal with the employer separately, because the responsibility of bringing the UR19 is not of the applicant, it's supposed to be of the employer. So as an applicant, if you apply for maternity benefit, the most important thing that we require is for you to bring along your ID. You need to bring along your banking detail. There's a form, it can be obtained in our website, where you have to fill in. It must be filled by your banks, because it then confirm your details, your bank account number, and all that information. But you must also, there's a form that you need to fill. It's a 2.3, which you get it in our website if you apply online or when you go to our different offices. And in there, there's a portion where your doctor needs to fill it in. And if you have already delivered the baby, then you need to give us then the birth certificate of the child. It needs to be attached. If you have not yet delivered, then there needs to be a letter from the doctor. So that's in a minimal from the applicant what we require. The other information about what is your salary, we need to get it from your employer.
That's good to know. If you go to, I'm talking to our audience, if you go to embrace.org.za/UIF, you will find that we've got links to those forms as well, directly from the UIF website, and you can download them from our website as well. And we've labeled them, and it's all there. That's good to know that these are the things that the employers need to worry about. I know that UIF has U-Filing, which is an online platform where you can submit this information. Does your employer have to be registered on U-Filing for you to submit on U-Filing? Or can I, if I'm a mom at home, can I submit via U-Filing? How does that work? Is there a matching system, or does it depend on whether or not the employer is on that platform?
No, it's not dependent on the employer. You can go on your own because on the U-Filing, there's different option for an employee, for an employer. So if you are an employee, you want to submit an application, you go there, you create your own profile, and then you submit an application, even if your employer is not on U-Filing, because that's a mechanism for you to submit an application. The employer can also go on the same U-Filing when they want to submit your information to us. But you don't need, your employer doesn't need to go there. You can create your own profile as an employee to submit your application.
Okay. That's good to know, Judy, because I think that the definitely the understanding that I had is if my employer does not register on U-filing, I need to fill in the forms manually. I need to go to the Department of Labor office and hand everything in. But it doesn't matter. Basically, I can create a profile on U-filing with my ID number, fill out my documents, I can scan and upload. That is very good to know. That's very good to know.
Yes. The
Yeah.
only thing I think critically to explain, the only time where I indicated that it becomes difficult for us to take your application, that's
Mm,
when your employer doesn't exist in our system, not on your filing.
mm,
Meaning he has never registered with UIF at all.
mhm,
There is
mhm,
no UI reference number existent from that employer. So in those
mhm,
instances, we'll then refer you to inspection and enforcement because then they are the one that must then follow up with your employer.
mhm.
Then the registration of your employer has to happen first before
Oh my
your
gosh.
application can be taken. So that's the only because
Okay.
remember we don't have a base. When it gets into our system, we need
Mhm,
to know because the people that in law are supposed to could have confirmed that you work for them, it's Embrace, and they
mm,
are the one that's supposed to give us your detail that you work for them, confirmation
mhm.
that you work for them. So without Embrace, it's going to be very difficult for us to confirm in the first place. We cannot just take
Without.
your word for it that you
Mm,
have worked at Embrace without Embrace coming and confirming to us. So those are
mm.
the only instances where we are not able to process your application if your employer doesn't exist. But if your
Okay.
employer is registered,
Mhm,
but your information is incomplete, we are able to take that application, but we follow up with your employer.
mm.
But
And
in
Judy,
most of the, okay,
sorry.
sorry, ma'am.
No, 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 you go.
No, no.
I
So,
just
but what I'm saying is that's what normally causes then the delay because you
okay.
have submitted your application.
Mm,
We are not processing it because before we can process it, we must go back first to Embrace. He must then Embrace give us all the information. Sometimes it's a 4 year period, or sometimes it's 2 months
mm.
period. So
Oh
they
my
have to give
gosh.
us all that information for that different period. We have to come and update our database. Only after
Mm,
that process is been completed, then we can process an application. But one of the key things that we have now seen that we are working on is currently there's a limit or there's a limitation in our process where we don't inform you. You submitted your
exactly.
application, but we don't give you feedback to tell you that we
Mhm.
cannot process it. We are still working with Embrace. And that's part
Mm,
of the process we're currently working on. We are busy with a process where we are reviewing our process where we want to keep clients updated. So we'll be as soon as we're done with this process, we will then indicate to you to say we have received your application, but please note there's going to be a delay. We
mhm,
cannot process this application because your information is not there while waiting
mm,
with the employer so that you can know what is happening with your application. So that is current gap in our system because people then will say, but I've submitted, I've been waiting for three
mm,
months, UIF is not paying me, but it's because we've not been
mm,
providing the feedback. So we have realized
mm,
that so we are working in closing that gap.
mm. That is very good to know because I think that that'll clear up a lot of the questions that we get are I applied and I still haven't heard, I still haven't heard. And what we don't see is that in the background, UIF is following up with employers. Is there is there a mechanism in place to follow up, I mean, to enforce with those employers, because that is, I mean, they should be doing the UIF submission every month, right? That they should be doing that consistently every month. Um, and the fact that they're not doing it and that there's this huge backlog in the system is a problem. Is there any kind of recourse for that? Is there any penalty that they face?
Yes, in terms of the UI Act, we work with the Department of Labor, inspection and enforcement services. So in an
Okay.
instances, we do communicate with employers before even that stage. We
Mm,
do communicate with employers where we pick up that there's outstanding information. And I think you have seen there have been different number of campaigns we've been going out, having sessions. There have been many employer briefing sessions that we have held, educating people, educating employers the importance of them providing information to us on time. So we working a lot on the education base as well. But
Right.
there's also the inspection and enforcement services where if you come, especially in instances that you come as Rumbi and you are not in our database, there and there
Mm.
there's a case that gets open with the
Okay.
enforcement and inspection and enforcement services where they will then
Mm.
visit the employer and then they will have to make sure that then they give them an undertaking and there's
Mm.
a
Mm.
compliance order that gets to be issued and all of that. But also
Mm.
in
Mm.
terms of the act, like if they don't pay the contribution, there's penalties and all this thing
Mm.
that gets to be laid on for
Mm.
late of not paying the contribution on time and all of that. So those
Mm.
are the different mechanisms that we are working on as well. But we are
Mm.
also working on improving that part as well.
Mm. Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you. Judy, I've got lots and lots of questions, but I'm going to come to those.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I
Yeah.
want to turn to Anushka, and ask you, Anushka, from your perspective as a working parent, and as an advocate, what are some of, and I know you are a business owner as well, um, for self-employed or business
Yeah.
owning or mothers who are employers themselves, what are some of the ways in which they can work within the system in order to ensure that their employees, if they are breastfeeding parents, are have access to the social protection?
Mm. I remember, yeah. So I think the first important thing is for moms who are returning or moms in the workplace to be having these conversations, to be having these conversations amongst themselves, to be having these conversations with their immediate management and with upper level management so that man can understand what the needs of moms are. I think,
Mm.
you know, we can't go guns blazing when we haven't even had the conversations, when we haven't even had the platform opened up to say, this is what we need, this is how we don't feel supported in the workspace. So, yeah, number one is having the conversations, being open about what we need to feel supported in the workspace as a mom, to feel full in our well being. Because I think ultimately that goes before even the aspect of breastfeeding can be spoken about, is the mom's
Mm.
well-being, mental well-being, to her physical well-being. And so that needs priority. And that can happen on a number of ways quite easily tomorrow morning. Employees can put certain steps in place tomorrow morning to take care of mom's well-being in the workspace. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think we can take priority, and I think we need to look at how we can just support a mom's holistic well-being in the workspace, and that then allows for so much more for her to be thriving in breastfeeding and all that comes along then with being a mom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Anushka. And what are some of I know you will have very recent experience of this. Anushka has an almost 2-year-old. Some of the challenges and realities that we need to be mindful of as colleagues who are working with breastfeeding mothers that they face going back into the workplace.
Sure, that has been so interesting, Rumbi, and like you
Mm-hmm.
say, quite new, with an almost 2-year-old little one at home.
Mm.
And the interesting thing that I've noted is that the workspace, if they've not had a baby in their home or on their own, don't recognize the changes that have happened within a mom on a
Mm-hmm.
physical level, on an emotional level, on an hormonal level,
Mm-hmm.
on a spiritual level. And
Mm.
so, understanding that this mom coming back into the workspace has changed completely. She may look slightly, somewhat resembles what she did before you met her, before
Yeah.
you went on her leave. Yet we've changed on such a deep level. And so I don't think this is spoken about, and I don't think this is understood in the
Mm-hmm.
workspace. So without these conversations happening, how do we even then get to the step of how do we support moms in the workspace? It's how have we changed pre and post birth? And if
Mm-hmm.
we as we've changed are not having these conversations, they're not going to happen. So it is up to us to be having them in the cafeterias, to be having them at our, Women's Day events and moments where we're just talking about it. Talk about parenting in the workspace. It be the foreign subject that's just like, oh, parenting is some random thing that happens, totally out of hours, versus, talking about it during the day.
Yeah. And what are the legal protections? So, I mean, in and amongst the culture shift that we have to have in our workplaces, there are legal protections, and the UIF is obviously a tool that's part of that legal protection. But what is the broader net of legal protections that working parents can rely on?
So, Rumi, we have the Basic Employment of Conditions Act, and that provides for some of our aspects of maternity leave. Okay. And that, give me a second, sorry.
No, sorry.
So that is what gives mom access and time off before and during and after their birth. So with that, unfortunately, that does not also allow for paid maternity leave. That is at the discretion of the employer. And I think we're going to have a lot of questions that's going to probably come through around that.
Yeah.
Judy, I think maybe you want to jump in there as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the things that Judy said at the very beginning, and I think it's important to note here, is that the Department of Labor, for all intents and purposes, holds the legal framework that governs working parents' access to parental leave, access to family leave, access to all of the concessions that you need, not just at the beginning of your parenthood journey. UIF offers a slice of support as part of that protection. And I think that is such an important distinction to note. Yeah. Sorry, Anushka, if you want to keep going. Well,
visitors.
Anushka, I also wanted to ask you, because I know as a working parent, you have recent experience of this. How do we create a truly breastfeeding friendly workplace for parents? Like, how do we really, oh my gosh, sorry, everybody. Okay, bye guys. I'm busy. Please go. Okay. Bye-bye. See you later. Off you go.
That's what we do. We normally...
I'm so sorry. It's the realities of being a working parent. How do we create a workplace that is truly accommodating? Oh no, I hope I haven't. I feel like I've frozen.
Good.
I think I froze for a second. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Yes, you're
back.
Can
everyone hear me?
Yes.
Mm-mm. 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 Mm-mm.
Hi everyone. So sorry about that. Life happened. My children came in and my internet collapsed. I'm not sure that the two are unrelated, but let's just say for now that they are. Anushka, I'm so sorry. We interrupted you. I was talking to you about what a parent-friendly, breastfeeding-friendly workplace actually looks like.
Hmm. So some things that we could do immediately is having the conversations about what it's like and the realities about being a parent in the workspace. And um,
Mhm.
second thing would be opting out of meetings, saying no, saying that you've got a family commitment, saying that you've got family time, you're not going to stay overtime, you can't work on a Saturday morning.
Mhm.
Normalize what just happened with your little one coming in, being on the call. It's a family.
Mhm.
Reality of what it means like
Mhm.
a working mom. We can't separate the two. And I think there's this false idea in the workspace that we've got to sort of separate the two and not be moms in the workspace. And it's really impossible to do that. So it's about having the conversations. It's about
Mhm.
normalizing what it means like to be a parent. You need it at this time of the night. There's little ones who want to be put into bed. They don't want anyone else besides mom right now. And so there's a time
Mhm.
where moms are just needed. Let's normalize that. It's not
Mhm.
moms
Mhm.
needed in the morning. There's a rush before the day gets started. Moms are needed. Sometimes being at
Mhm.
the 7:30 a.m. is not possible because it's mom's school run and
Mhm.
it's not what it's really like to be a parent in the world versus just thinking that we've got to show up in a workspace from 9 to 5 and then forget about like being a mom or dad for that matter in the workplace.
Mhm. 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 And I mean, I think what you're saying, Anushka, is, I mean, because there isn't necessarily a law that you can turn to and say, hey, I can't do this because I have small children. It doesn't exist. But that as in our workplace, as managers, if we are in management, as middle management, just as a culture, is that it's upon us not only to demonstrate that that is okay in the workplace, but to make it okay for the people we work with. Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. We have to set the standard that we wish to be supported in our motherhood
Mm-hmm.
journey
Mm-hmm.
by those we are working with in the world. And that goes for our
Mm-hmm.
employees, co-workers, our
Mm-hmm.
colleagues we that we find interacting with on a daily basis. We have to set the standard for how we support it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
be it so that they can experience that in the workspace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am very aware we have had many, many questions. And I don't want to shortchange our audience on the live. Some of the questions have been answered. Judy has spoken about the documents that are required for an application. Judy's also spoken about the use of U-filing, and also about the process that's going on in the background that mums don't know about with following up with our employers. We've also had a question around, sure, a mother said she started a new job on the 11th of April and she informed her employer that she's pregnant when they made the offer. Unfortunately, according to their policy, she will receive 1 month worth of salary in the 3 months. She received her UIF document last week. Her question is, will UIF pay the benefit? How is the benefit calculated by UIF? And does this differ depending on your income bracket? So I think that's for you, Judy. So this is a mum. She started a new job in April, and she informed her employer she was pregnant. They are giving her 3 months of maternity leave. She's only getting 1 month worth of salary, and the gap is 2 months. Does UIF cover that gap? What does she have to have done for them to cover that gap? And how is the benefit calculated?
Okay. Remember, I think for that part, I'll just answer it in general, but I think that particular case we need to look into because it will be interesting to know whether she was working before he started with a new employer or not. But
Okay.
remember, I did indicate earlier on when I started, where I did indicate to say to claim for maternity, you must have worked at least for 91 days on that year from the date of application that you are applying in. So I think in her case, it's a case that needs to be looked at. If she's starting April, it was her first employment, then for UI, benefit he has not accumulated because he has not met that. She must supposed to could have worked for 90 days in that year, so he
Before
doesn't
the
meet that.
application.
Yes, if that
Okay.
is her first employment. But if she was working somewhere but just joined that employer in April, then it's a different case completely. So in terms of how much do we pay, and I think we did send through some sort of a calculator, but just to make it example, we pay 66% of the salary that you normally earn, but we've got what we call a ceiling. So for an example, the maximum amount for UIF is about 17,712.
That's
What
right.
does that mean in principle is if you earn 20,000, remember in terms of your salary, you need to contribute 1% of your salary and the employer contribute 1% as well. So if you earn 20,000, we don't take 1% of the 20,000. The maximum is 17,712. So we contribute 1% from that 17,000, which is the ceiling. So even when you become unemployed, the salary that we use to calculate the 66% will not be the 20,000, but it will be on the 17,712. But if you're earning below that, then we do the calculation based on your salary. But the important part as well, we take into account the period of how long you have worked. For UIF, it's for every 4 days that you work, you will earn 1 credit days for UIF. So for an example, for you to be able to qualify for 121 days, which is 4 months, you might have worked at least for like 18 months. Then you are able to qualify for a full. But let's say you've worked for 4 months or so, we'll have to calculate the days you have accumulated in that 4 months. So you might find that you're not going to receive a maternity benefit from UIF for 4 months, but we'll just pay you for those days that you could
For
have accumulated from.
the periods
So the
that you have
calculation
been.
it
Okay.
depends on how long you worked, and it also depends on the salary that you are earning.
Okay. So Linda Kutle, it sounds like she wrote back to us and she was working and had worked for another employer. So it sounds, Linda Kutle, it sounds like that other employer will also need to have submitted a UI-19, and you will need to then declare you were working for that employer up until a certain point, and then your new employer, and you'll be able to claim UIF for the period leading up to this. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, because we don't look at the employer. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
No. I was saying we look at your previous. We don't only look at the employer you are working on now. We look at the period of 4 years, the different employers that you have worked in a period of 4 years from the date you are applying.
Okay. Some of the questions have been answered, everyone, so I'm just going to go through them. But I think the question from Lindy Friedman is about, can I apply online or do I have to go to a walk-in center? I think what Judy has said is that you can apply via the UIF filing platform. Judy, what is the URL for U-filing? What's
Sorry?
the website address? What is the website address for U-filing? It's ufiling dot... Is it .co.za?
Yes.
Great. Just ufiling.co.za. You don't have to go to a walk-in center. Okay. When is the soonest that you can apply? Do you have to wait for the baby to be born?
Okay. You need to apply as soon as you go on maternity leave. So let me make an example. If you're going on maternity, your last day to work, let's say, is the 31st of July, and your maternity benefits start from the 1st of August. You need to apply from the 1st of August going forward. The problem is if you apply before then, when your application is received, we're going to see you as if you are still employed. So you are not qualifying for maternity benefit because you're still working.
Okay.
So you need to wait for the period that you go on maternity leave, yes, for you to apply for benefit. Yeah.
Okay. So the soonest basically that you can apply is maybe a month before you go on the leave, right? Because then it applies for the next month.
It's always best if you apply from so let's say if you apply in July, your date of application is going to say July, whereas in July you are still in employment. So it's always better if you go on the first, that is why I'm saying the first month you are starting in, so that it doesn't create back and forth, because if you do a month before, when it comes to our system, we're going to see you that you are applying while you are still in employment. It's always better that the month you are starting your maternity leave on should be the month that you apply. Because under normal circumstances, if you're starting your leave the 1st of August or your maternity 1st of August, we're supposed to be replacing the August salary if your employer is not working. So that is why it's always better to apply at the beginning of the month, because we're only supposed to be receiving payment at the end of August. But what normally happens in some instances, you also find, I think one of the critical thing that I need to highlight, besides your declaration, remember I said your employer must give us on monthly basis how much you earn and all of that, the declaration which we need. When you go on maternity benefit, there's an additional form that your employer has to fill in for maternity. It's normally called the 2.7. So there the employer has to confirm to us that during
that you are still on
maternity
leave.
You are no, but she needs to confirm that are they paying you a salary or are they not paying you a salary? So on monthly basis, they tell us that Rumbi works on monthly basis. So we get that information. So your information is in our system. But Ruby goes on maternity leave from the 1st of April. I mean, let's say from the 1st of August, maybe until November. The employer has to give us additional information besides the declaration, because now you are going on maternity. He has to confirm to us that in the month of April, in the month of August, when you are on maternity, are you going to get a salary? September, October, November. We need that information first before we can process your application, because remember, you only qualify if the employer says you don't get a salary at all. Or we are able to calculate how much are you qualifying to get. When the employer tell us if we pay you less, how much is less. So you also find employers where for the first 2 months, they will say we pay you 100% of your salary. And then in the remaining 2 months of your maternity, then you can claim from UIF. So those are instances that you find somebody claim in August, but the employer say August, I'm paying the salary, September, I'm paying the salary. Even though you submitted your application in August, we're not going to pay you in August, we're not going to pay you in September, we're only going to pay you in October. And that's why sometimes people say that I've been waiting for 2 months, my payment is not being paid. But we are not paying because what the information your employer gave us is
giving
you
us
are receiving a full salary
incorrect.
in that.
Yeah. Anushka, I see you're chomping at the bit. Jump in here, because I think what I'm hearing from Judy is that there seems to be, and this is coming through in the feedback, that the obligations are maybe not being fully understood or met by employers. Anushka, jump in here.
Yeah, I don't think employers themselves fully understand when it comes to the maternity rights, and specifically what needs to be taken care of pregnant workers in the workspace. So I think there's a lack of, and I don't want to plead their ignorance, though I think that there is a lack of knowledge when it comes to this kind of information. I think that the workforce of women have become the strongest that they ever have in the last 100 years. So this kind of knowledge is only becoming more rife. And so we have a duty to number one, empower ourselves and allow platforms like this where we can learn and understand exactly what it means, where are we protected, where do we have a in the law to be protected in a vulnerable space like being pregnant, and how we can use our advantage during that time. So I think these platforms are amazing. And then I think it's creating the little mini communities within our workspaces where we do occupy time, so that those who are making the decisions when it comes to support have a chance to really listen to us, and once we opportunities for them to have these conversations, I think they're going to moms in the workspace rock. And so those who are in management are going to take a seat. We are losing workforce. The study losing workforce, a key workforce in numbers, because moms are rather choosing to be with their families. Post-pandemic has shown that work is really being given the middle finger. It's like my family comes first. And so we have to look at how moms in the workspace and what are we going to do. So we have to look at ways that we can better support moms in the workspace, be it in the form of the UIF, in more private policies within our workspace, the conversations that allow moms to feel heard. Moms just want to feel, and sometimes that really takes away the pain and the anguish or the anxiety that a mom is feeling, just a moment. So I think an opportunity here for workspace to look at, are we really supporting moms in the workspace, or is it a title in a magazine or online that we're talking about and not really facilitating those changes? And I hope that workspace.
But just yeah.
Can I just, Judy, before you jump in there, I just want to ask, because I know that this is part of what falls under your portfolio, is if I am a mum or an employer and I have questions, you say there is a call center. Where can I reach the UIF? Does the UIF have social media presence? Is there a help center? Where do people go with all of these questions that they have?
Okay. Yes, we've got social media platforms. I think we've got an account on Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got an account on Instagram, and where you can raise your issues, and we've got people that our communication is assisting us in working on those. But besides that, we've got the call center, like I've indicated, but we also have the U-filing support. For those that have got they want to complain about the U-filing, where you can go to ufiling.labor.gov.za. But we also, where we deal with complaints, where it's complaints, UIF complaints at labor.gov.za, where people can send their complaints to, or they can go to different labor centers that they could have applied for benefit to apply in that. But like I've indicated, we are also working on improving feedback to our clients. So we're currently working in processes where we want to provide, where clients must not complain. We must keep on giving constant feedback to client in terms of what is happening, status, their application, and all of that. So we are working on that process. So what I wanted to come in earlier on was also on the issue of education, to say part of the process that we are working on as well, because we have realized that people don't understand, especially around maternity. So we are also working on a booklet about maternity benefit that we are developing for our client, where we're going to explain the requirement, but also explain what I've been talking about. How does a maternity benefit works, how the calculation work, how the top up, what information is required, and all of that. So those are some of the things that we have picked up within our gap as well, that we are working on, just to assist in educating as well, as much as the responsibility lies with the employer. but we also want to
Okay.
empower employees, especially while they are still in employment, for them to know what is required so that by the time you come and claim for maternity, you already know what is required. You don't have to come to us only to find out what is required. So we are working on some of those things to also improve education and
Right.
feedback to our clients as
Okay,
well.
great. Judy, on that, I'm sorry, Anushka, I know you have your hand up, but one question that keeps coming up, and I know we've got 5 minutes and there's been a lot coming up, but people are concerned about status of their applications. What does it mean when your status read cancelled by assessor on an online claim? What does that mean? Does that mean it's been unsuccessful? Is there any way I can contact? What does cancelled by assessor mean?
Okay. In most of the instances where the application get cancelled, that's when you find out that the person has applied for benefit,
Mm-hmm.
but there was contradicting information maybe received from the employer. Because we also have
Okay.
instances where, let's say for an example, you say to us you went on maternity from April and May. But when the information from your employer comes in, then they say in April and May you were working, you actually started in June. So
Mm-hmm.
those are instances that will then cancel an application and process based on the new information that it's coming in. But like I've indicated, we trying to work on the feedback so that it's more explanatory to clients. So
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
reviewing some of these statuses that just says cancelled by an
Yeah.
assessor to be
Yeah.
provided,
Because
because
it
that's a internal information that is understood by us. So we are working on this
mm,
message to make it simpler for clients to get an understanding what does the
mm,
status mean. So that's part of the
mm,
process when I said we are working on our processes to make it
okay.
more efficient for our client.
Okay. I hope that helps with that. Okay. I have the call center number and I've given the call center number. It's 0800 030 007.
Yes.
Um, the call center, there've been questions about whether or not the call center is managed by a third party, but I don't want to get into that. But just to say, what kinds of queries can the call center handle and what can't they?
Okay. In the call center can handle any query. The only difference is when the information is not in the system. So let's say you go and apply in KZN, for an example, and we've got a national call center. When they
Mm-hmm.
respond to queries, they get feed by the system. So the only
Mm-hmm.
instances where it might be that they are not able to provide feedback, that's when they check in the system and they don't see your application being loaded in the system yet. So they will
Okay.
not know what is happening in this
Mm-hmm.
in that application. So those are the only instances
Mm-hmm.
where then they will be referring the case. So they will not be able to provide a response to a client there. So they will take that query and then they forward it to the KZN office. They
Mm-hmm.
look at it and then the intention is for them to call the client
Okay.
and provide feedback.
Okay.
So, but anything else, because they work from our
Mm-hmm.
system, they can give feedback. It's
Okay.
only in instances where the information is
Is
missing
missing.
or it's not
Okay.
updated that they are not in a position to
Okay.
respond. Yeah.
Okay. Anushka, you had your hand up. I want to come back to you. And we are running out of time, but I don't want to, I want to come back to you.
Yeah, I think it was just to mention that I made and in 2023 there shouldn't be a need to mention this, but I think it's important for anyone who finds themselves pregnant and feeling nervous to even share the news with their employers, that they shouldn't even consider that they could be discriminated against, because that is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
incredibly be discriminated against on grounds of your pregnancy, and
Mm-hmm.
your salary shouldn't be changing pre and post your pregnancy. And if roles are
Mm-hmm.
going changed within your contractual basis, that needs to be discussed prior to you returning to work. And so these are just some aspects that I think are important for women to be in the workspace, so that you are aware of what your rights are in your existing contract. And if you aren't sure, and if you are pregnant, have a look, take out your contract, ask your HR to send you a copy of your contract. Many women don't even know whether there are any kind of, provisions made for pregnancy, pre and post. Are there any changes to their contract? Thing that I thought is a golden nugget I wanted to leave with anybody that is watching. So,
and Anushka, where would you advise that someone go if, for example, I'm worried about restructuring or possibly retrenchment that's been started while I've been on maternity leave? Where can I go?
CCMA.
I know that's a big question. Sorry. Yes.
It's a big question. Ultimately, CCMA, that would be the best. If it hasn't been able to be resolved internally, ultimately we wish to, mediate a situation. And if one is feeling threatened in a workspace, then, you would ultimately want to go to your immediate supervisor and be able to have these conversations. So if not, there is the CCMA to be able to take this the full mile and make sure that justice is served, hopefully in their position with their employer status.
Thank you. Okay, I know we have had a lot of questions. I'm actually just going to go through it one more time, just to make sure that I've covered everything. I just want to say the CCMA link, I'm hoping that someone on my team posts it in the comments on the live, but it's ccma.org.za. So if you go to ccma.org.za, you'll find the information that you need there. Judy, I know ultimately what your office is trying to do is to make this process easier, not just for mothers, but for everyone who is wanting to access this social protection that can be valid. It can be life-saving for people in absolute dire straits. If I'm a mother, I'm feeling daunted by the process. I'm feeling daunted about maternity leave. I'm feeling daunted about UIF. What would be your your final words of encouragement, or like just something to get a mum started on this process? Big question, I know.
I think for me, the most important thing will be before a mother goes on maternity, the first key thing is just to check with your employer first. I think it's very critical for them to give you evidence that your information is being updated with UIF, your status with UIF, it's up to date, so that it makes the process much easy. By the time you come to the UIF and apply for benefit, that your information is already there. That's what makes the process to be much easy, but also to also know what is required in terms of documentation, because a lot of what clients were complaining about is them coming to our office only then to know what is required and then have to go back. So I think it's very important for before you go to the offices as well, get to the website, because there's information in terms of what is required and all of that. So I think the most important thing is while you are still at employment, empower yourself. I think Anuksha was indicating earlier on as well. Let's empower ourselves in terms of what are the requirements. Let's empower ourselves to check. I think the most important thing is check your employer if they deduct money into your account. Are they really paying it at UIF? Are they giving you information at UIF? I'm going on maternity leave. Are my records up to date? I think that's one of the critical things. Also to acknowledge from our side, there have been also the areas of gaps, and that is why we working on the process that I'm talking about at this point, because there have been instances as well where there have been delays from ourselves as well, and there have been gaps of lack of feedback, like I indicated. So we did also look into our processes and check where are the gaps so that we make the process to be much easier for mom. And that's why I indicated that we are also coming up with pamphlets to educate, because we also realize that one of the contributors is people not understanding. So we are also trying from ourselves as well to come up with information to educate mothers and all of that. So I think the most important thing to make it easy, just start with the employer and get that
Not
your
with your employer.
information is up to date. Yes. And
Great.
I also just wanted to update. I think earlier on when I spoke about the U-filing website,
Mm,
I think I did
mm,
say .co.za. My apologies. It's ufiling .gov.za at
okay.
labor.gov.za. .gov,
You
not
filing,
.co. At labor.
ufiling.gov. You
Ufiling at
filing.
labor. Yes.
Okay. Okay. We'll find that. We'll put that up on the chat.
Yes. Yeah.
Judy, I know someone from your office has been on the social media and they've been responding to comments. Can
Okay.
they, in the next few days, if there are more questions kind of come up in the comments, would they be willing to just keep engaging on Facebook with mums and working parents who have questions?
Yes, we can do that. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
And Anushka, final words from you. There's a lot that I was going to ask you that we didn't get to. But I think one of the things that struck me when we spoke about this is not just the lessons that you've learned as a working parent, but that you have now a unique understanding from your position, not just as a working parent, but as a working parent in the South African economy, with the unique divisions that we have between the informal and formal sector, and what your responsibilities are as someone who can educate people around what they need to be doing. So can I just ask you for closing words that are around that? I know that's very vague and very big, but I know you're up for it.
Knowledge is power, you know. Let's understand what is available. And I think I can say it as a cliched part of my everyday work, yet I think there's value in training, in legal
Mm,
training, in women understanding what their rights are in the workspace. I'm a big advocate for that.
mm,
And, you know, women in the
sorry.
work
Mm,
in the workspace. So we grow
mhm,
it from to the other. And
mhm,
let's
mhm, mhm. I love that. And there's a wonderful synergy in what you're saying and what Judy is saying, that the best place for a mum in the workplace to start is with her employer. And if you are an employer, Anushka is saying a lot of this stuff feels like admin and it feels like a lot of work that you're doing, but it comes from a culture of understanding and really valuing the contributions that working parents have. I know that in a conversation before this, Anushka and I were speaking, and Anushka has said, and I fully agree, that no one can multitask like a mother. I mean, look, the three of us here, not just the three of us, and the countless working parents who are lying next to sleeping children, maybe holding them, watching this on Facebook. No one knows how to juggle all of these different roles and different worlds like a working parent. And these are the people who hold up our economies, both formal and informal. And it's in the best interest of our country to hold them up and to support them. Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna close the live. I want to thank everybody who's been engaging in the comments. I'm sorry if we didn't get to every single question. We're going to do everything we can to either follow up in comments, or if you go onto Embrace's website, it's embrace.org.za/UIF. There is a toolkit there with FAQs, with a calculator that should answer some of the questions that have been coming up. Again, Judith has said you can also go to UFiling's website, or you can contact the call center. And the call center will find your application on the system if you have a specific application question, or offer you the general information where they can. So in the run-up to this, we ran a competition on our social media, and we have 3 winners who have won a very special Embrace swag bag upon sharing their UIF experiences. So I want to congratulate at K Moleko, at Amanda LaRue, and at Samantha Bianchi. Congratulations. Our social media team will be in touch with you to get your contact details, and you'll be getting a very special Embrace swag bag. So thank you very much. I want to thank you, Judith. Thank you so much for engaging with us. I really hope this is going to be a long and fruitful relationship, because I can see where you are coming from, and the load that you're carrying, negotiating between the employment sector and workers, and trying to kind of bring these two into synergy. It sounds like an incredibly huge job. And I'm really grateful to UIF for the speed with which you responded to us and how open you were to talking to us. It's always a good sign. It's always an amazing sign when you contact an arm of government and they're like immediately like, yes, we want to talk to you. How can we make this happen? So thank you for that. Anushka, thank you. Anushka is incredible. She's one of our fellows. And as I say, your passion for this work, and the way that you've brought your own experience as a mother to bear in this work is truly incredible. And I'm grateful for you being here, because I know that you weren't well several days ago, and I'm grateful to you for making the concession and for being here. Thank you both so much. I want to thank employers who are on this call and who are committed to figuring out what might be complicated processes. We want to thank you, and we want to encourage you to keep going. And I also want to thank the team behind the scenes who are also working parents as well, for kind of keeping this going, and also making sure that we're all connected and give or take a few interruptions. Thank you everybody so much. I really appreciate the time and the energy, and happy World Breastfeeding Week 2023. May the conversation continue.
Thank you so much. Good
Thanks,
night,
everyone.
everybody.